Hello, I'm Morag, and welcome to this episode of Sense Making in a Changing World podcast. Join me each week in conversation with leading permaculture-related educators, thinkers, activists, authors, designers, and practitioners to explore the kind of thinking and action we need to navigate a positive and regenerative way forward, to myceliate possibilities and share ideas of what a thriving one planet way of life could look like. My guests offer voices of clarity and common sense. I am so delighted to share this conversation with you today. I'm speaking with William Padilla-Brown, a certified permaculture designer and someone I call a public professor of mycosymbiotics. Mycosymbiotics is what William calls biological aids for permaculture systems. William is always active, either teaching or researching or out foraging. He hosts the MycoFest. He's a citizen scientist and urban agriculturalist. He was featured in the fabulous film Fantastic Fungi and has been featured in media such as Wired magazine. But let me begin first by acknowledging that I'm recording this episode from my hand-built solar-powered studio here on beautiful Gubbi Gubbi country. I'm surrounded here by my permaculture design gardens in a permaculture eco-village. The Sense Making in a Changing World podcast is a project of the Permaculture Education Institute. We teach permaculture design, teaching and livelihood skills online to people on 6 continents, who in turn localize and enrich it and find appropriate ways to apply the planet care ethics of earth care, people care and fair share wherever they are. Before we jump in, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to Sense Making in a Changing World podcast on your favorite app and to share it freely. And also leave us a 5-star review and a lovely comment, because it honestly really does help the little bots find this podcast. All right, well, let's now turn to the conversation with William Padilla-Brown. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Sense Making a Changing World show, William. It's just such a pleasure to have you here. I see you as kind of like the public permaculture professor of mycosymbiotics, someone who's out there in the world sharing this in such a myceliating way, democratically sharing out this kind of way of understanding a much deeper level of how we can speak the language of nature. So thanks for being on the show.
It's truly an honor. I feel very grateful to be able to have my platform extended, and especially to such a directed audience. It's going to be fun to be able to engage with the audience you've built. So thank you.
So if we could begin with, firstly, like, what is a mycosymbiote? And how did you become one?
How did I become mycosymbiote? So, mycosymbiote, just breaking it down, like myco meaning, of fungi, and then symbiote of symbiosis, but symbiote referring to, a singular entity, meaning myself. In that sense. And when I created Mycosymbiote, I created that name specifically for a YouTube series I was doing, probably in like 2012, 13, something like this. But I was posting a lot of different content on the internet. I've been posting content on the internet as long as I can remember, really. I mean, I was on YouTube since 2007 when it first came on. And I made this series called Mycosymbiote, and the whole idea was to show people how they can work with mushrooms, and the mushrooms can be beneficial for them. So it's like, all right, we're growing these things; they're giving this back to us. The series is going to be called Mycosymbiote. And back then, I didn't even have Instagram or any other social media or anything like that. So my Mycosymbiote series became more popular than anything else on my YouTube. And by the time that I came around to making an Instagram, I just decided to call myself that on Instagram, and here we are. It's the rest is history.
Where did your world intersect with permaculture, and how does permaculture weave its way through what you talk about in mycosymbiotics?
Well, permaculture came into my world before mycosymbiotics. I was around 18 years old, and I had already been living on my own for a year. And I had just moved in with my lady, we live together still and loving life. But we had just moved in together. I was growing different food, experimenting with different plant medicine and fungal medicine and synthetic medicine. all sorts of different things. And synthetic, and just to be clear, I'm just talking about like psychedelic substances. I'm not talking about like pharmaceutical things like this. And I was meditating and experimenting with different religious modalities and meditations and mantras, mudras, um, qigong, yoga, all different things, and eating different diets and trying to just see how everything affected me and what worked the best for me to be able to live a fulfilling life. Because for some reason, I was tired all the time. My bowels were all messed up. I was depressed, and I'm just like, I'm a young man. This is supposed to be the prime of my life. Why am I not feeling all the great? So in experimenting with all these different things, everybody thought I was super weird. And like my whole life since I was young, I was interested in like mysticism and like pyramids and aliens and things like this. And so like all of getting into all that in my late teens emphasized the weirdness of the pyramids and aliens and all that other stuff that I was always into. So I didn't really have many friends, and I was really ready to drop out of society because it was very clear to me that all of the unsustainable systems in the world were going to fail us. So I didn't want to become a man and grow into a man that was dependent upon a system that I felt like would just crumble. I wanted to learn how to live a different way before I just become interacting with something that I can just get the rug pulled from under my feet and not know what to do. I was just doing my thing and ready to drop out of society, literally like just growing vegetables, wearing no shoes, going in the woods, not talking to anybody, just working my little job and doing my thing. And then my girl got pregnant. My parents were like, join the military, like you got to find a real job. And like her dad was just like, oh my God, like what the heck is going on? And then her mom was like, maybe you should talk to these people, because she had some friends that was her age that was doing permaculture. And so they were like 40 and 50, and I was like 18. And she was like, these people like might be able to like guide you in somewhere, or be able to like teach you about something you'll be interested in. And there was a permaculture homestead like 10-minute drive from where I was living, in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. And it was frequented by some really interesting people like Scott Mann from the Permaculture podcast. My mentor, Benjamin Weiss, was there frequently. Charles Eisenstein did talks there. I met Dave Jackie there. It was just like a lot of things just happening in this random little house in Pennsylvania. So I went over there and I didn't know anything about permaculture. But when I went into the backyard, I was probably tripping on some kind of psychoactive substance. And for the first time in my life, I saw something that didn't feel like it was wrong. Like I felt like what I was looking at was like good. It felt healthy. It showed me good symbols. I could see positive energy from it, and I radiated towards it. I was like, what is this? What are you guys doing? And I wanted to learn everything about it. There was like a lot of hugelkultures, a lot of compost, and the food was growing. It just looked so great. And there's people hanging out with each other. It was just like, what is this? This is amazing. So I took a permaculture apprenticeship with Benjamin Weiss in 2013 into 2014. And my son was born. I had to miss one of the days. And then I took a full-on permaculture course. That was really it, because I didn't even finish high school. Like I dropped out of high school. I had a GED, which is in the US. I don't know if you guys have that over in Australia. It's like if you don't finish high school, you can get a general education diploma. If you just go to like a local university, you can do a test that says that you know enough to get a good job, a regular job. I got my permaculture degree or my permaculture certificate, and I felt like it was more valuable than any degree I could get, because I didn't value the other systems that I was presented with. So I was like, in the world that I want to live in the future that I believe is possible, this is worth more than that. So I just started doing permaculture. I knew that permaculture was the most valuable thing I can do to create a better world for my son, to create value for myself, because I saw everything else was crumbling. And honestly, it's been the best thing. From interacting with my permaculture teachers, I could grow organic food for myself and my family. And I knew that my mentors were making money by teaching about this. And I knew more people would want to learn about it. I could see trends my whole life. It's all patterns. And I was always very good with pattern recognition. So I knew that people would one day be interested in this. I didn't know how long it would take before a massive amount of people would be interested, but I knew that I had a window of time to make myself like well known in this, and to become an expert in the things that was missing. So I kept looking at all the permaculture literature, all the permaculture videos online, and I was like, there's not enough people in permaculture that knows enough about mycology, and there's nobody in permaculture talking about algae, and there's only a couple people that knows about insects, but they mostly know about worms. So I was like, all right, this is where I can learn and be a valuable asset to this community, is if I can emphasize these pieces that I think are very valuable that are missing from most people's permaculture design. So that's what I did. And I did it all mostly in this room is where I started doing all my designs, and I had my first lab. Yeah, because I never really had much land besides a little backyard that's out here, and you can see it in all my old videos. I did my first permaculture gardens out there and everything.
Well, that's amazing. And what I love about what you're saying is that it's that finding the niche and finding what you're passionate and curious about. So it's not just like finding the niche either. Like you've actually dropped into something that seems to just fill your cup incredibly. And how did you learn about mycology, phycology, and become this citizen designer and scientist that you become? Like, what switches you on to this, and where do you find the information?
Well, first I found it on the internet, like on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. All right, so like when I was really little, I grew up with my grandparents, and they were really old, and I thought that they were really cool. They were really cool. They were scholars, and my grandfather was a Black American English scholar. He was the first Black English professor in New York City, and he was very proud of this and what it meant for our family. And they made it cool for me to like want to learn stuff when I was really little. And they told me the TV is the boob tube, and I will lose my mind if I watch it. And they said that why put on tomorrow what you can do today? Like, may your task be big or small, do it well or not at all. They told me all these things. They wrote stories. They read it to me. They made me want to learn things. I wanted to be able to do that for my family and my kids and people that are around me. And when I was younger, I got to a point, like I got lost in the sauce just like everybody else. I thought that all of that stuff was all the things that is bad was cool. And I like watched bad stuff on the TV and on the internet, and I listened to bad music, and I did all that stuff. But like when I dropped out of school, I didn't want to stop learning, and my grandfather had just passed away a couple years before, and I didn't want to disrespect what he did for my family. So I started learning about stuff on the internet, because that's how I knew how to interact with information. Instead of watching like random music videos or something on the internet, I started watching documentaries on different things that was going on in the world. I started to watch a lot of different kinds of news that was independent journalism on the internet. Because I knew that the news was messed up. My grandfather already taught me about that. And we also traveled a lot when I was young. My mom was a diplomat for the USDA. She did foreign trade with different companies all around the world. So nobody had to tell me that a couple companies ruled the world or ran the resources. I already saw that when I was little. And so like all that stuff already made sense. I started to see a lot of trends around the whole world about how the economy was working. Knew that the unsustainable ones were not going to work. So I didn't want to invest anything into that with my resources, my energy, my life, whatever I had, which was just my life energy. People want to make algae biofuels. People wanted to know about mycoremediation, mycomaterials. Like mushrooms started to become more and more trendy. Even back when I was younger, it started little by little. I would see I saw videos of like people riding a bike around to pick up coffee grounds in Australia to go make oyster mushrooms. I saw that when I was like 19, 18 or something like this. And I saw people 3D printing on the internet, and I saw people doing all of these different things. And I'm like, this is what the future is. I could see clearly. I'm like, these are the things that's going to be necessary. We need to figure out how to recycle stuff into these 3D printers. We need to figure out how to make our own food and cosmetics and fuels with algae. We need to figure out how to make food materials and all this with mushrooms. And I was like, I couldn't do anything more valuable for my life than figure out what's the future. And all of these big media outlets were literally traveling to go do documentaries or document people that was doing this stuff. So I was like, this is clearly what's coming. Then I would watch every video I could about everything. I would find like, this is what all these different species of algae that people are growing, and this is how it's grown. And then I found out about Google Scholar in 2015. And I started using Google Scholar so I could find research papers. I would just go serve tables all day, and I would come home and I would sit there on my girlfriend's computer, because I never even owned a computer until I could afford one with my business. I would just sit there and like the keys were broken. I would just watch as many videos as I could and read as many papers as I could. And then I started growing mushrooms in our basement in a little 2x4 grow tent, because I started working at this hydroponics store so I could get materials for on discount. And everybody thought I was still crazy, and everybody thought that the mushroom thing was like a hobby or something. I rented a table at a local farmer's market, and then I started selling my mushrooms more. And I did that all by permaculture design. I took everything back into the system. After my first investment in myself with my money from serving tables, I stopped doing that because I had to make sure I paid my bills and put diapers on my son. I just kept putting the mushrooms into it. Then I started playing with the algae, and it was able to save me money because I was a vegan at that point in time. I grew almost all my food in my little backyard by foraging, by growing mushrooms in my basement. And then I started growing algae, and then I built a 3D printer, and then I bought a used polymerase chain reaction machine and started teaching myself how to do molecular biology. And then I bought a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino and tried to start making robots to automate some of this stuff so I didn't have to do it by myself, because I couldn't convince anybody around here to do any of this. I couldn't convince anybody. Still, like, I'm about to leave central Pennsylvania. I'm about to move to California. People come from all around the world to my classes, 2% of people from the whole year. And I get thousands of people that come to my classes and come to my events. It's from here. Like, only my MycoFest brings people that's from here. But all my other classes, people fly from around the world. People fly from the West Coast. Still, I'm having a hard time with getting people here interested with this at any extent that they're willing to like invest into it, like whether it's their time or money or energy. So I can't keep staying around here whenever there's opportunities for me to be able to buy land for my family and stuff.
So there's so many different things that you said I want to pick up on, but to stay on some of the tech things to start with, you talked about 3D printing and molecular biology, and I know you do DNA barcoding. So how does the 3D printing and the DNA barcoding fit into this bigger picture?
Okay, so I was really trying to create a whole system design, and I'm still working on it. I've been working on it since I did my permaculture design when my son was born 9 years ago. I've been working on building a whole system, and now I have people. It's really coming to a really great point right now. Part of the thing that that I'm doing in my system, so I can learn things that's really hard to comprehend, and then make it relatable to people that had a hard time understanding it. And it's partially because I traveled so much. I had to be able to fit in London, in Mexico, in central rural Pennsylvania, and California. I had to be able to relate to people. It's important for me to understand all of the aspects of the system that we're trying to build so that I can educate the people that's going to be operating those parts of the system. So for our whole system to work, which we're going to buy land and create a campus that has ecologically regenerative, sustainable micro industry models operating on it, with people working them, that's making income by working them, that we have available for people to come learn from. This is what I've been working on this whole time. By understanding all the different aspects of our system that we need to be able to support our life and to support our community, then I can teach that to the people, and then they can make a job from it. So that was what my whole MO was with it. And when I was younger, I saw this open source blueprint system called Precious Plastics, where anybody in the world can make a recycling system. And I saw it in real life on multiple occasions, not just on the videos, by traveling around and interacting in these different communities. So I was like, this is powerful. This is for real. And I need to learn how to manufacture what we need with this so we don't have to buy it at the store, because there's enough materials already out here that we're just throwing away, but there's no such thing as a way. And I'm just throwing away resources into a recycling system that just goes to the South Pacific to get burned and put in people's villages in giant mountains of plastic or go in the ocean. And I know this. So like, why would I contribute to that? So I was like, how do I do this? And then also all these kids that are watching screens are addicted to surprise toys, and they want to open a bunch of plastic. And I wanted them to be able to throw their plastic in the machine and watch it turn into the next thing that they wanted. And I want it to be visible for the kids as soon as possible to know this is the reality that they're living in, so that they can build on the future of what the world will be from this, not from seeing it only on a screen or something because it's not tangible. People don't even know if the stuff on the screen is real because they don't go outside from where they live and they never saw that stuff where they live. I wanted to bring it all here and make it real for people. That's part of it. So with the 3D printing, that was really a big part of what that was. And then with the molecular biology, I knew from all of the media that I had watched that we're going to be living in a world filled of genetically engineered organisms. There was this kid named Austin Hines that ran this company called Cambrian Genomics. Over 10 years ago, he was laser 3D printing DNA. He had a program called Creature Creator where you could create your own organism. And this was 10 years ago. And I was like, we're going to live in a world that's so complicated by molecular engineering that if you don't understand basic molecular linguistic, you will not know what you're looking at. Like, some people don't even know what GMO means. Like, they don't know what that means at all. And like, and everybody in the permaculture community when I was younger was afraid of molecular biology. And I didn't want to be afraid of it. I wanted to understand it so that I can know what the hell was going on. So I didn't want to not know, because then I will be afraid of the world and what's going on with the world. I don't know. Now I know. And now I can interact with it. And now also my mentors taught me to do biomimicry. They told me to look at nature, and nature is my tool for doing permaculture design. I have organic syntax. I have the codes for protein language. Why would I not learn how to mimic nature at the fundamental level of nature? We are losing so much biodiversity. At the same time, we have great places around the world that's doing great things. So I don't want it to seem like it's going all the wrong way. I have hope that the future is going to be good, but I also live in reality where I'm seeing things get built over top of. So whenever I tell my son to go out and look at the woods, it's going to be further away and there's going to be less of it unless we do the right things right now. So if that future starts to manifest, which is the one that I was born into, the one that was manifesting while I was alive, we need to know what's here. We need to know what was here, because I'm out here looking at trees and animals to see what trees and animals are not here, because every tree and animal is formed and shaped by the things that was around it before, and everything is gone. So there's trees and animals that's formed by things that's not here anymore. So if you can read between the lines, you can understand what we're missing. And if you can collect this DNA right now before it's gone, then the people in the future has the ability to literally look at the codes, tell you what it will look like. They could probably put in a computer program and like make a virtual reality of what the thing is. And I just know that that's the reality that I'm living in. So I'm just like, all right, let me capture all this information right now and make it available for the people in the future. And we're making an incredible wealth of digital information that I don't think this is going to be easily lost. So I want to just keep shouting into this stuff to make sure that people that can understand me will hear me when they need to hear me, where they need to hear me.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just want to come back to what you said about those things in the forest that were shaped by what's not there now, and that's kind of reading into that liminal space, and it's understanding what's going on in the context, in the soup of life. And I wonder whether that understanding has come to you from spending so much time in the forest as a forager and starting to really deepen your understanding to be able to be in dialogue with nature. And what does that actually mean? So, from a molecular biology point, you've articulated that. But out in the forest, what does it mean to be in dialogue with nature for you? How do you describe that?
To a very big extent, I am an organic entity with a biological function here on Earth. And so when I'm in the forest, if I can get out of my own way, it means that I'm also part of the story. And then I'm just in the story. I'm in the living language, and I can feel things and smell things, and everything I see and sense is telling me everything. If you go out there and you're like, this is an oak tree and that is an Pleurotus ostreatus mushroom and Quercus blah blah. If you go out there and you use global north reductionism for everything, then you already know what's out there, and there's not much really to learn, is there? Then you know. But if you go out there and you understand everything is just existing as it is, in the shapes that it is, in the forms that it is, all information. Like the oak leaf shaped this way it's information to me. I can't. I mean, I've been working on the best way to make it more comprehensive, but like the way that it's shaped, it's a symbol. So like my baby, my little kids, when they're little, they can look at emojis and understand how to interact with emojis, and like happy faces and like a mean face. They understand it. They understand that like a scary animal, it looks scary. It doesn't take much development to understand the symbols in life and the symbols in nature. As we get older, I feel like we've abused our linguistic systems in our brain by depending so heavily on auditory language and human ideological symbolism. That part of our brain is being over stimulated more than any humans have ever been stimulated by. And it's being abused. And that part, we rely too heavily on language that's not nature for people to understand that. Like whenever I first started hearing people say that they could talk to plants, I was like, what, in English? Are they talking to you in English? Like it didn't make any sense to me. But when I could understand that, like just being alive and the dialogue and the relationship I have with my family, even like when I'm eating the food, like it's all telling you things. It's all explaining things. Like I really value the sommelier culture, like the people that can like smell the wine and tell you stuff about the field. Humans are the most advanced scientific device developed by nature. This, like, we can mimic every animal. It's incredible. And our senses telling us so much. Like when you can get down to like, all right, this smell is this compound, then you can smell and taste stuff and tell you all different kinds of things about the environment. And like, that's language. Like you are then, when a sommelier drinks the wine and they say, oh, the ground was acidic and it rained, it was drought in the year, and like, all these different kinds of things. It's the wine is telling them that. The grape and told them those things because it didn't taste like the other one did from this environment. And so it's like not just looking at it, it's not just feeling it, it's like a multi-sensory, multi-dimensional experience. And like you've been in it your whole life. And when you get out of the way, you will realize every smell, every taste, every feel that you had was your interpretation of what I'm explaining right now. It's different for every single one of us because we're unique, because we have something cool and unique to bring to the table, because we're experiencing this perspective reality from a different perspective. This reality is non-local. We're all perceiving this reality from somewhere different. You can think about it multidimensionally, or you can just think that like my body is made up of genetics from all over the world that came from different place than yours. Your ancestors were exposed to different foods, to different cultures, to different temperatures, and your perception of this reality is inherently going to be different than my perception of this reality. And that's awesome. And like we should all be talking about what things taste like and feel like and smell like for us with each other, especially because you're in Australia and I'm in Pennsylvania, and I'm a Western African, Caribbean, Portuguese mix up, and I don't know whatever you are, but you can understand what I'm telling you right now. And there's not been many times in history where it's just like this. So we should amplify this and talk about what nature is and talk about how it makes us feel. That's what it is. That's what the language is. That's what the story is.
Yeah, gosh, goosebump moment. I think it's a shift, isn't it, from this notion of reconnecting with nature, because we are in it all the time, and it's that thing about getting out of your way and maybe reperceiving who we are and how we are. And something on your website, I think, about seeing ourselves as humans as being deeply embedded and important part of our ecosystem. And I think this shift is a huge, I don't exactly remember the words, but it's something like that. And maybe you could re-describe that, because in contemporary society, a lot of people who live urban lifestyles have a whole lot of sense of guilt, or like we're doing the wrong thing, we're wrong for nature. But actually we can re-perceive who we are in relationship with the places in which we're dwelling. That is a huge part. And to step outside of that dualism.
Perception is everything. And like a lot of people may not want to think it because they have like scary thoughts or weird thoughts, but like what you think really affects reality. Like that's what metaphysics is all about. That's what I studied when I was younger. And like what you think and how you feel and how you maintain yourself affects reality. And like there's a lot of people that just thinks that like we're cancer and all these different kinds of things, but that comes from a limited perspective of what's going on here. And like I'll say this, and people can take it however they take it. But like, I've been traveling around the world my whole life, interacting with incredible people and seeing different cultures and living in different cultures and eating their food and talking with them and not always agreeing with them, but always able to hold a conversation with them. In all of my interactions and seeing how resources are used all around the world, I believe that we are okay. I believe that we're in good hands. This doesn't mean that you can just keep doing all this stuff, but I believe that we're in good hands. I believe that there's enough responsible people around the world that are doing enough good that we're okay. And I believe that the apocalypse will happen, but that is just a death of our ideologies. It's the death of an ideological world that we created. The apocalypse has already happened for so many civilizations. Their world ended. Then what's left? Nature, reality. You just go face it. Like, I don't think that we're gonna kill ourselves out. Like, I don't think that we can destroy the world. I think that that's hubris to think that we will destroy the planet. There's so much time for it to come back from this. And what is nature? If you get a cut on your leg and you pick at it, it'll get all nasty. If you keep scratching at it, which a lot of people have a tendency to pick out their scabs and all this kind of stuff, it will take longer to get healed. But the nature of nature is if something gets messed up, it will go back to being healed. It will heal itself. If you scar the land and you don't do anything, it will go back. But if you scar the land, you keep mowing and you keep mowing and you keep mowing and you keep mowing, what it's going to do? It's not going to go back to normal. So like, I think it's just a hubris thing. But I think that, there's enough good people doing the right thing that we're going to be okay. And I think that more people should hold the narrative that it's a better future. And that takes culture, that takes media, that takes so much, because there's so much money pouring into doomsday apocalypse movies and content and all of this kind of stuff. And like, there's so many people in the permaculture scene that doesn't even value about like the social media stuff that I talk about, or about the cultural, like societal stuff, because it's like about back to earth, about getting on the land. Like, we don't even want to be on the digital thing. But like, there's so much of us that will forget, especially when we find our little like eco village. And I'm not trying to, I love this saying, if I throw a rock in a pack of wolves, the only one that yells is the one that gets hit. So it's about, if you take offense to these certain things, it's because you have something going on with yourself. So there's people that will create these homesteads of self-sustainability, or go to these eco villages, and they live in these places, and they can forget that there's almost 8 billion people in the world that don't have access to that. They don't even own land. They live in a city, and hopefully it's a good one, because a lot of them are not that great, or being bombed, or all sorts of crazy things going on in the world. Like, that's the reality of it. So like with that understanding, is that most of those people have access to like an iPhone, or like YouTube, or the internet, or something. So it's so important that there's something better than what's being put on there, that goes in there, because it is so important that people value nature and have a reason to care about nature right now, and know that it's out there, and what's out there, and what it can be, and all these different kinds of things. So yeah, we need to create a better narrative, because the metaphysics of reality is that we create what we think, we create what's in our mind, and we need to put more good ideas into people's mind. And then also, I say this in like all my talks, but like, if more people hear it, the better. Any good therapist will tell you, if you want to get over your problems, you first have to accept that you have a problem. And a lot of people, as a collective on this earth, have not accepted the extent that we have messed this up. We have not accepted the extent that we are born into having to pay to be alive, and pay for water, and pay for food. We already have passed the threshold. Nature is regulated. Like, we can't just go drink out the streams and fish and pull whatever we want out of the water. It's already past that threshold. Accept this. It sucks. I already cried about it over 10 years ago, so I can say it really easy for me. But like, it sucks. We already did that. So if you can accept this, and we can move on past this, then we can think about how we can do the better things. And then you can realize that every problem that you see in the world is an opportunity for you to do the business that's going to be more valuable in the future. Because right now we're operating off of a wealth system of terrible people that had incredible assets. They had incredible assets coming into the new world that they were able to build giant oil drilling machines and ships and trucks and create an infrastructure of reality that we all depend upon. And now we're using their money. So what I'm telling you is that there's enough people doing permaculture that that's not the future. And also, if there's people not doing permaculture, if you watch the dollar bill, since I was born in 1994, the buying power is less than half. Any house that was 10,000, let's say, if there was a house that was 10,000 in 94, it's 20,000. Anything that was $10, now you takes $20 to buy that same thing. So it's going up faster. So it's regardless of like a permaculture or not, but there's more people creating alternative value systems. And like, that's where it lies. Like it's our time now to take whatever resource we have from this world that was created, that we were born into, whatever oil that's left, whatever gas, whatever resource that we can actually afford to interact with right now, and turn it into the assets that's going to be helping us to create the reality that we want to live in and manage our resources. And it doesn't have to be like drastically different than what, like, we need electricity, we need gas for our stove, we need to be able to get from point A to point B. Figure out how to do those things sustainably where you live. Like, it doesn't have to be big, grandiose, like, I want to live in, flying cars or super food forests or blah, blah, blah. Most people can't even make that leap. Try and just do things that's tangible and look around at models of it that's already been done. But in doing that, I think that's the most important thing, is to build assets into the economies that we want to interact with, because the money's already going down the poop hole. Like, people can say yes or they can say no, but I'm not debating about that. I already chose when I was a young man that I was going to live in the reality where that money's not worth it. So I'm going to go invest in having assets that can produce me food, that can help me get from point A to point B, that sustainably, that good social equity, so people know that they can trust all these different things. That's what I value. So, I'd rather keep building on that.
But the thing is that you're not just doing it for yourself, are you? I mean, you're doing it for yourself and your family, but you're also being this public professor, sharing it out as far and wide as you possibly can, helping to speak into this new narrative and to inspire other people to start to share into that narrative as well. I mean, I think, this idea of, if we could be inspiring people to each step up and to be public professors of their own portals of knowledge that can contribute to the whole and be part of this decentralized network of those who are, helping to bring this forward. And I wonder what ideas you have of accelerating that or connecting up those threads. I wonder if you have any ideas about that.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, I will argue that I'm the most selfish person ever. I was younger and I ate a bunch of psychedelic substances, and I had multiple experiences where there is no difference between you and me and the plant and the table and the floor and the sky, and everything is all the same thing. I have had such potent experiences of this feeling that there is nobody that could tell me that we're not all one thing. There's nobody that can tell me that your hurt doesn't affect me, that pain and suffering in any part of the world doesn't affect. I'm saying me because that's just the best thing for me to explain in our contemporary language of this body right now. But like, I don't really feel separate. So what I'm doing is for self. It's for all. It's for all, because everything is the same thing. So like, I will argue that I'm the most selfish person. So I will also say that it doesn't need to be really much emphasized right now. But I will highlight how more people can get engaged, I guess, is what I would say, is that right now is the best time for this. There is events and festivals and conferences and symposiums happening all around the world about awesome stuff all year. So like, anywhere you are in the world, you can go to some permaculture conference, some permaculture festival, some mycology festival, some recycling things, some 3D printing events, some whatever. There's so much cool events going on all around the world right now. One, it's the best place to go learn in a decentralized way, because it's like, in these places is where a lot of the experts in these fields go. And if you're not going to go to college or pay to go to college, you can go to one of these events and you can literally meet the expert. And the thing that I tell people, so they don't waste their time, if you have an expert that you want to meet and you know that you can have the opportunity to be in an event that they're going to be at. Read all their books, watch all of their videos. When you interact with them, then you will not ask them a question that they already answered. Then you can ask them a question that they haven't answered already, and you won't waste their time or your time, because time is valuable right now. Every interaction is just, it's so important. Every moment is so important. So like, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Learn everything you can about them, and then go ask them that question. And 9 times out of 10, they will value you differently than other people, because you already know what they put out. You're not being redundant. You're not just showing up and not knowing what's up. You know what's up. They will see that. I can guarantee you this, because I did it every time it worked. Every time I already knew what they were talking about. I knew their conversation, and I knew how to meet them where their conversation was happening. And so I can engage with it instead of asking, how do I get to your conversation? Like, how do I learn to talk about what you're talking about? No, I'm talking about what you're talking about. Let's have a conversation in the real moment right now that's going to go somewhere. So like, that's what I really recommend. And then on top of that, like, if you have an expertise in something specialized, then you can probably go talk at that conference, and they might pay you for your gas. They might pay for you to get a hotel. And if you start to put yourself out in a very confident way, and you know how much you're worth, they will probably pay for your time also. And then you can also vend there. So write a book, make a product, do something like this, set up a little table, talk about your talk, then have something that can represent you or your community about what you just talked about, because you just had a moment with a group of people to show them about what you represent. So give them what you represent. They're probably inclined to interact with it. You literally just gave them an advertisement that wasn't even an advertisement, because you blessed them with a gift. So they may be inclined to return the favor, because in the gift economy, the person that gives the most is the richest person. So like, if you just go and you give your gifts, I'm guarantee you that this will change so many things. And it's the best time ever to do it, because there's so much supporting industry right now. There's so many people that want this right now. They want to interact with this right now, want to know how to get engaged, want to try something new, want to try something that's going to be good for the world. So go get engaged, go meet the people that's in your regions, amplify whoever's the person in your region that's supposed to be the conduit that goes to the other places. Because this isn't for everybody. It's not sustainable for everybody to be flying all over the place, not until we have better transportation. But in all of the regions, there's individuals that will show themselves to be that person. And like, not everybody's supposed to have the mic in their hand. Not everybody's supposed to be in front of the camera. We have to accept this. I dealt with so many teams of people that has a ego and a hubris instead of having that eco mindset. They got the ego mindset, and the ego is helpful, but we have to understand where it belongs in all of this, especially in this community function. So all of us can play the part that we were born to play. Like, just like I said, we all have an ecological function. Nobody has to tell the squirrel to be a squirrel. Nobody has to tell the truffle to be a truffle. It does the thing it does. But sometimes we can get in our own way. That's the funny thing about human beings. We can stop ourselves from doing ourselves. Like, and then we can be like, who am I? That's such a funny thing. Like, no animal is like, who am I? It's out there literally doing the thing in nature it's supposed to do. The bear is like out there scratching the tree, eating the fish, pooping the fish stuff out in the forest. Nobody tells it to do that. So like we got to get that out of the way. And when we do that, we'll also recognize that as humans, we have the social ecosystem as well as the ecosystem of nature. So in our social ecosystem, we all have a function as well. Like, certain people are good at this, certain people are good at that. And when we work together, we can amplify and become the higher consciousness that everybody thinks that they could just like meditate and eat a bunch of psychedelics and they can like be higher conscious by themselves. No, that's like, it's for communities. It's literally like in the Hebrew, like mysticism, it takes like 7 mystics to even start doing the magic shit. Like it takes multiple humans. Like, one ant by itself cannot build the incredible colony. One bee by itself cannot build the incredible hive. But when they come together, they do things that they can never do by themselves. That's what we need to do.
There's something to do with the language. Like, absolutely yes to everything that you just said. Then I just felt a smile creep across my whole body and the way that you said that. And there's a word I really bump into language of how to describe, because I teach permaculture, permaculture teachers, and out in the community sharing and talking all the time, and I bump up to this limit in language of how to describe things. And there's a word that I'm seeking for, and I wonder whether you might be able to help me. There's a lot of words around, biophilia, connection with nature, but I think there's something in, like, when you are in your place, and whether that be a forest, and you can see that oneness, you can see, but you see the food as well. You can see what's nourishing you, how you interconnect. It's not just a love of nature, which still I feel like has this separation. Or when you're in the garden. So I'm just looking out here to my permaculture garden out here, and when I'm in the garden, I feel like I'm the gardening, and I'm, the landscape informs how I interact with it, and there's this relationality going on. And when I look out from my house and I see the garden and I understand it in that way, and there's a sense of oneness, there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of community. It's not biophilia. I don't know what to call it. I can describe it, but I don't have any language to say, oh, we're working towards this. Or maybe that's just a silly goal to actually even have that it is in the description of it rather than the thingness of it. And perhaps that's my problem of searching for the thing as opposed to the relationality. I don't know. I was talking to an Indigenous man across the way here, and he just said, oh yeah, there's a word in our language and it's home. And, my Western brain kind of went, no, it's not home, because that, I was thinking house, home, garden, and no, it's not home. But then just to kind of like it just clinked into place, and thought, oh, maybe that's it. That is the home. It's our habitat. It's our home. But so much of this language is sort of scientifically extracted that kind of has this certain meaning over here, but it's deep, it's visceral, it's like this tangible feeling that I have. And I've been asking absolutely everyone that I come across, whether you understand what I'm saying to start with, or whether there's a word in a language you've come across, or a description that you feel like when you just in a place and you know where your food's coming from, you know how you are in that sense of connectedness with what nourishes you, what holds you, and how you are in relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, one, that's like ultra luxurious experience right there that I want everybody in the world to be able to have, because that's our birthright. Being born into this planet, we should all be able to have that feeling. And the fact that we don't is why I work so hard at this, because somebody's got to, or else more babies will be born and not know why it's like this instead of like that. I think that we could create new words, and I think that that's important. I think that there's like really powerful like words and descriptions as far as like auditory language goes, like from different cultures. Like I believe it's like Vedic, maybe Hindi, I'm not sure. Samadhi, this word, if it may fit very closely with this what you're describing. And I found through studying a lot of Vedic and Indian and Hindi and Punjabi and all different kinds of religious literature and the teachings of the yogis that came off the mountains to show us yoga. And it seems that like a lot in the meditation and the inner work, like that, so much so that like some of the yogis that came to the US were able to like stop their hearts in front of people, or like control their body temperature and like snow and stuff like this. The level of inner control and understanding what you're saying, like you can create an external experience that makes you have this experience, but you can also like meditate and like control your body and like from being that tapped into self. But like there's also external things that will stimulate all of these different things. Like there's people that can have bliss and like hear music and like taste amazing thing, or like, just by meditating, they don't ever want to do anything besides meditate. And what you're describing, I believe that we're starting to create resonance with the physiological realities that humans have created here. More times than not, it's a bad outcome from this environment that we've created. And a lot of times in the patterns that I've seen, it's like the further generations that you get from nature, the worse it gets. The further generations that you put the shoes on, you put the built environment, you started controlling the atmosphere around you, you started controlling the food. How much of your life have you lived outside of human control? Like how much of your life have you lived outside of the reality that humans have created? Because we're evolving into that. And the more that we evolve into that, then you get cancer, you get anxiety, you get depression. It's like, that's all I see when I look outside. I've seen it time and time again. I ask people, I'm like, when's the last time your family farmed? Do you know what's the last member of your family that lived off of the land that they were on? And a lot of people don't know. I know I'm 2 generations away from the farm. And like there's people that's like 6, 7, 8, depends on where you come from. But there's so many people that have been in cities, in human built environments for like many, many generations. And I can only imagine what kind of evolution that leads to, what kind of patterns and tendencies and routines that leads to. I can't imagine it. It's cancer, anxiety, and depression. So we need to stop doing that and get back to nature, get back to what you're creating, what you got, what you're saying here, which is resonating with health. Whatever that means, we'll figure that out, because the language, the culture, the operating system that our biological computers are utilizing right now is garbage. It's outdated. So whatever it is that you're describing, we may not even be able to talk about it this way. It may be something that we feel together. It may be something that we are telepathic about. It may be something that we meditate about and go to a freaking different dimension and interact with about. These are all things that's possible whenever you want to live in the multiverse instead of driving cars around that suck.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm grasping at this, at languaging it, because I want to speak it up more in the world of permaculture, to try to describe it in a way that this is what permaculture is about. You know, it's the gardens and all that, but it's about this. It's about this deeper perception and being in this oneness, that visceral experience, to be able to describe it, because it is about being truly human. There's something about that, coming back to that home, as Jason was telling me, like coming back home in our context, home in wherever our place is, in a place that nourishes us and nourishes it, and being in that place. I just struggle to find the way to describe it, except by having a long conversation or going for a walk in nature and sitting with a group in nature. Or I take kids on like a group of young people, and we go walk through the middle of the river and just sit in the rocks there and have an experience together. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's like you're saying, maybe the words is not the way to try and get to the heart of that.
Yeah, I mean, more and more individuals' capacity to be able to interact with the experience in the moment is lacking. So we have to understand that sometimes the experience that we're having in the moment isn't the same experience that the other people around us are having. A lot of individuals are preoccupied because they are not fully met in their needs in this reality. So they're oftentimes, their mind is trying to figure out how to get their needs met. So when you're interacting with them in the moment, they're not fully capable of being with you there. So like, I just think that's really important to like just try and meet people where they're at. These conversations are incredibly important to try and like, bridge these gaps. Like, I'm living my life not just for me. Like, this life is an example. This life is a model. And the more selfless I can be, I feel like, is the more service I can be to everybody, because so many people are so caught up with themselves. I think that the most like bizarre thing for people is to see somebody that's like the opposite of that. Like, whenever I built my company when I was younger, because I had ideas that I could be living on land, and I should be living on land, and I should have been smarter about it and moved differently. But like, now I know how to do business. So I learned my lesson. But when I was younger, everybody's like, why are you sharing everything? Like you could patent this and be making millions of dollars and da 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 da. And I'm just like, well, people need to be able to do this. This can help other people eat. This can help other people, create incomes for themselves. And like, I could have patented it and charged the rich people that were able to make a lot of money off of my ideas to use it, and still gave it to other people for free. That's how that stuff works. But like, I don't know. I didn't know any better when I was younger. Now I know better. But like, in doing all of those things, a lot of people would ask me, like, they just couldn't understand like why I wouldn't choose to just be super rich and take all of the things that I can potentially do with my mind and just go be super rich. Because they could see it in me. I mean, like, just like I look in the mirror and see the potential that I brought out already. Mm-hmm. Like, there's still so much more that I'm to do. Like, when I look in the mirror, like, if only people could see what I see. And like, if people could say ego about whatever, ego this or ego that, if you don't look in the mirror and see the most beautiful thing in the universe, then you got a lot of work to do, because you've been given the most ultimate gift that you're even here right now. Like, that is the best gift ever, is your life. So like, this would be the most thing you value the most. Like, so if people think that's an ego, then that's on them. Like, but like, when I know that I'm capable of doing all of these things, there's other people that look at me and know what I'm capable of, and they're like, oh, how come you just didn't be an asshole? Like, and they're confused about it. And I'm just like, well, that's the problem right there. It's because anybody, if they ever had the opportunity, they would choose to be the asshole. And that's what we keep seeing time and time again. But when somebody shows themselves to be as the most selfless and move the most energy in that way, I think that's like life's a language, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless if we're using this, at the end of the day, when you die, that story is the imprint of the symbolic linguistic experience that you had while you were alive. So towards the end of all of this, wherever this goes, the way I live my life will be the language of that I lived. It's not about what I say or what I write down. It's not about what anybody says or what they write down. It's about what you do. It's about how you represent and how you express yourself into reality. And the best gift you could do is express yourself. You have a unique genetic profile. Be that fully into reality, unapologetically be that into reality, and be as selfless as you can about that, because you are an incredible gift to all of us as well as to yourself. And the best thing you can do to yourself is give that gift to others, so that people can recognize you, respect that, honor that, and reciprocate. I mean, that's what we're working on here. So like, I have a lot of work to do within myself. I'm only 29. I've had a lot to learn in my relationship with being a young father and figuring all of this out and everything. Like, I mean, being a man in this reality, in this time, and just being young, or like being American. Like, there's so many things that's like I have to face every day in my goal to be the person that I want to be. But like, it's worth it. I know it's worth it, because like, I don't know, what else will I do in this life? Waste away or be bored or like not like my life? Like, I do not want that at all. Like,
and when you show up in that way with that deep love and respect for yourself, then it myceliates so much further. You become kind of like this active node that has a life of itself. It's so exciting.
Mm-hmm. It's the living language. It's the living language. And like, be the example that other people need. Like, I had angels meet me when I was born. My grandparents were my angels. They were the most magical beings until I met my family that I created here, until I met the love of my life and created a family with her. They were my angels. I mean, like, I love my parents to death, and like, they've heard my interviews and they know how I feel. But like, my grandparents showed me love that they never could, because they were working, because they were busy, because they were caught up in their own lives. My grandparents show me unapologetic, unfiltered love in a way that helped me to be the man that I am, helped me to hold myself up, helped me to want to seek knowledge and want to seek to be tactful. Like, my grandfather made me write essays about being tactful when I'm 9 years old. Like, that was him loving me. Yeah. Like, some people would think, oh, grandpa's making me write this is so, and I hate this. That was the most love that somebody could show me as a young man. Yeah. And I think that the living language, the living symbol, for me to be able to do that for other people, that's it. That's where I will be in servitude here. The universe will do with me what it will. And like, once I can complete this for myself, I'm a firm believer that this journey is completable. Like, there's certain people that says you will be learning for the rest of your life. And I guarantee you will be learning for the rest of your life. But I will not be an old man that is suffering from not keeping up with myself. If you're not ahead of yourself, you will always be catching up. And I do think that you can get ahead of yourself. I do think that you can, if you don't like certain aspects of your being and you know that that's not who you are, then you can get rid of it. You don't have to be subject to this. It may be the hardest thing that you ever did. It may take years and years of your life, but I guarantee you it's so worth it. And I will become the most perfect form of myself in this life that I can. I know I will. And if more people can say these things, just like I said, what you think will be reality. If you can have those realities, and like some people may think you're crazy, but I encourage you to run with it. If people think you're crazy, then you're on the right path, and go do it. Because in 5-10 years, they'll be asking you how you got where you're at and how you got so happy with your life.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee
how
you.
you got so happy with your life. Absolutely. Where do people connect with you, William? If you're heading westwards, how will people find you, connect with where you're heading with your journey now?
Mycosymbiotics.com. You can join our newsletter. I will be in a city near you soon in North America. I will be in Europe in February and March of 2024. And I do have plans to be in South America, hopefully this fall, but I have a lot of plans that kind of like shifted up. So I might be investing more into moving to California. We'll be continuing to do MycoFest every August in Central Pennsylvania. So I will be in Central Pennsylvania every August. I will be in Puerto Rico every year, at least once a year, to show honor to my family. Rest in peace to my abuela, Carmen. She passed away this year while I was in Puerto Rico. She was my last line from there, beside that of my grandparents. My father is still here. But I go there to show respects and to bring back gifts because my genetics come from there. There's things that I know in my experience from traveling around that's not there that will be helpful to be there. So I feel like it's important to like give gifts back of things that I received from not being in there. And because it's a really beautiful place to be. And I don't feel right to just enjoy it with having the experiences that I had, where if I was born there, I wouldn't be able to have these experiences. So that's the way I feel. And I want to keep giving back to Africa. This year we were able to fly Josephine out from Uganda, from Eco Agric to MycoFest. And I want to get out there, but I'll probably be like fall of next year. So we have plans to be all over because people keep inviting us all over to interact and learn about stuff and to help to do our DNA barcoding in the environments where there's not as many descriptions of mushrooms, because it's a really big thing. So yeah, you can find us in a city near you by going to mycosymbiotics.com, going on our newsletter. Everything is updated all the time. You'll get an email that says we're going to be here XYZ places. And always our main page on mycosymbiotics.com has all of our upcoming events. Yeah, I mean, I'm about to end up my fall tour, and then I'm kind of just going to go off the map for a little bit while I work on myself, and then I'll come back. Next level will, if people can afford that luxury. So guys, like anybody that's hearing this shit, start working now. Like it may be hard. The burden of the entire world may be on your shoulders. I literally was serving tables. My son was in diapers. I had a GED. I was dealing with racist shit. I couldn't get any money. And I knew that this was the reality I wanted to live in. And now everything is awesome. And I get to go judge cannabis competitions around the US and sell my mushroom supplements at these places. And this is freaking awesome. Like this is the life I wanted when I was young. I wanted to do this. Now I get to do it. And it's great. And if you want to go live the life that you want to live, like nobody's going to do anything for you. Nobody's going to give you a handout. Start working right now. Like start working yesterday. Like get to it, put some pep in your step. And know that we'll all be able to have some fun at some point. Like once we get this harmonious symphony back in action, because that's what this all leads to. All of us doing our passions, all of us finding who we are. Then we all get to hang out and play while we're alive on Earth together with each other. So yeah, I will, I'll see all of y'all in the new world.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. It was really awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sense Making in a Changing World, a podcast of the Permaculture Education Institute. Check out the show notes below to find all the links to William's work. And also check out the notes for where to find details of all of our permaculture courses, our YouTube blog, free masterclasses and film clubs, and make sure you signed up to hear news and updates. And come join us here at the Permaculture Education Institute to learn practical skills for designing and teaching permaculture and making a good livelihood while living a permaculture-inspired, one planet way of life. Take care. I look forward to your company again next time.